They've got a opening batter who's basically as fragile as a poppadom.
At the end of the second test in Wellington, it's time for Ask George. Hi, George. That was all rather breathtaking and frenetic, wasn't it?
Wasn't it? It was impossible to write up before the end, that is for sure. It was brilliant. It was one of the great days. So I felt 100 times today how lucky I was to be there.
Well, Jack Rule asks about exactly that. He asks, should this game go down as one of the greatest test comebacks of all time?
Well, of course. I mean, how many times have you seen a side win having been asked to follow on? You know, it's very, very rare. So, yeah, absolutely fantastic comeback. New Zealand needed to play the perfect game from the point where they were put back in, and they pretty much did. I don't think England did that much wrong. I think they did a bit wrong, but New Zealand were absolutely brilliant. Right down to the point where Neil took a fantastic catch to get rid of Ben Foakes. I think that might be overlooked a little bit in the grand scheme of things. It was just brilliant. And yeah, they won. And maybe after everything that happened in 2019, they deserved a wee bit of luck,
Jim Cottrell asks, for all the talk about the new mindset influencing England's batting aggression, did we see its effect on their resilience today? England would easily have lost this match a year ago.
I mean, they did lose.
I suppose it's, they were 80 for 5, very early on in the morning. And then...
I don't know that you're underdogs, though, once you've asked the side to follow on. I mean, I really don't know. Yeah, sorry. I haven't got a good answer to that question at all. I thought afterwards my Twitter feed is full of people complaining about the wide that wasn't. And I think it would be a mistake to focus on that too deeply. Just because in the same way that people who are focusing on that wide, how do you feel when people go on about the overthrow at Lords in 2019 or all the other tiny little moments that, define a game? And there were lots of occasions when England could actually have won it, not least Ben Stokes batting in either innings, which wasn't great, was it? They've got a opening batter who's basically as fragile as a poppadom. There are lots of things that they could look at and do slightly better, but actually New Zealand were magnificent and it was a really good game. So I don't know that I'd focus much more than that.
Danny asks, how much do teams practice running between the wickets, and should they all perhaps spend a bit more time doing it?
Well, I don't think they do at this level train very often. It's interesting because we've seen 2 humdingers of run-outs in this game, haven't we? In this game, we saw the Bracewell one on day 4, which was incredibly amateurish, where he just didn't ground his bat or his feet. And poor Harry Brook was barbecued by Joe Root today. But you'd have to say Joe Root is a terribly good runner between the wickets. Not the quickest, maybe, but he's fantastically good at getting off strike, running quick singles. He just got one wrong. It happens.
Sushan asks, how brilliant and composed was Foakes until he got out? How can there be any talk of dropping him?
Well, I agree. I thought he had a really good game after a good second half to the game. Really brilliant. But he didn't see them home. If you want to be really harsh, I'm a big Ben Foakes fan. I thought he batted terrifically. I thought he had done it. But the fact is, with 7 to go, he was out. And, someone has to come into the side. It's only, 3 or 4 tests ago that he was left out for Ollie Pope. It is absolutely possible he'll be left out again, but personally, I think it would be a mistake, and I take the point.
Megnath asks, at what point do we question Ollie Pope's place in the side? He averages 32, which is similar to Owen Morgan's test record, and he was considered a failure.
That's really interesting, because I was about to shoehorn Ollie Pope into the last answer. Ben Foakes' position is under threat, and everyone agrees he's excellent. What's Ollie Pope doing? Why does he keep running down the wicket? It's really weird. It's like someone said, if you want to be a great test number 3, look at videos of Jonathan Trott, and he's looked at the wrong videos. He's looked at the videos of him against Mitchell Johnson right at the end, where he started to wander down the crease. Just keep still, give yourself a chance. Early on, people were oohing and ahhing in the press box because he kept missing the ball. There were straight balls, and he was missing them because he's jittery. He's all over the place. Calm the hell down, yeah. I mean, he's a bit of cartilage away from being England's test captain, because Ben Stokes is clearly struggling with that knee. He's about to go to the IPL. And I don't see that he's scoring enough runs to justify it. Yeah, his place is absolutely under threat. He needs to do a lot better.
Why do you think he was so jittery today? Because he really was just a bag of nerves for the
He's
full.
been doing it for a while. I think he thinks that that's the way to demonstrate positivity. Do you know the best way to demonstrate being good at batting? Score loads of bloody runs. That's the way you demonstrate how good you are at batting. Not by body language. Oh. Joe Root said, I'm really worried about, carving out a role for myself in this team. Don't know exactly what I said. Score lots of runs. How about that? And he did that. And he batted like Joe Root in this game. He was terrific. He probably deserved to win the game. But he went back to doing what he did before, which is just scoring runs and not worried about really what people think and how many sixes there are and, what it looks like in a highlights package. Some of the great Joe Root's innings don't have any shots that go on a highlights package, just like great Alistair Cook innings don't, because he gets his runs imperceptibly. It's not like Harry Brook. I would just like Ollie Pope to concentrate on getting some runs. He's very, very capable of doing that. It's got in his ear, the Bazball stuff, and it's not helping him.
Jack Rule comes back for a second question. Has Stokes played himself out of selection? He's unable to bowl and struggling to bat. Dropping himself would be very Bazball.
I mean, I think they've still won 10 out of 12. I think he's still completely revolutionised England's Test cricket. He's still played a couple of the best innings I've ever seen. He's still won 2 World Cup finals. He's still taken some of the best slip catches, some of the best outfield catches I've ever seen. He lost one today by 1. Let's chill, shall we? I mean, he's clearly a bit injured, but with one leg, I mean, I think genuinely, if a great white shark got him this evening and he had one leg, I would still back him to be Test captain ahead of Ollie Pope.
Background Noise asks, watching Ben Stokes drop anchor is my secret guilty cricketing pleasure. What's yours?
Mine too. Oh, well, that's one of them. I'm really glad that someone said that. That's one of them. There were a few things today that I really enjoyed. Something I really enjoy is when the crowd's quite loud. I mean, it's not a particularly raucous ground, but it was pretty full, And I love that moment when it goes silent just for a ball's bowled. Absolute silence. I love that. There are lots of things. It was a really, really good test. It's been a brilliant tour, And I honestly thought many, many times today how lucky I was to get to do this, I guess. And also just they're such I was going to say well-connected sides. I mean, they're sides with so much in common. English cricket used to be so grumpy. Remember in 2013, England won the Ashes 3-0, and people were saying that it was kind of joyless and all the rest of it, and they didn't seem to be attracting new supporters. I do think there's a lot more respect for this England side because they've borrowed that New Zealand way of playing, which is playing really hard, really aggressive, but just not being gits. And I really like that. So I think it's they're both, I think, kind of teams that their supporters could be quite proud of, the way they play. And sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. But anyone who thinks that that's what it's all about doesn't understand it at all.
And finally, Rhys Benjamin asks, why on earth don't New Zealand pick Ajaz Patel?
Well, it's a fair question, particularly today. But, I mean, you know the answer. He doesn't contribute much with the bat or in the field, whereas Bracewell is a terrific fielder generally and can score some runs with the bat. So that's why, I mean, you see the same thing happen. It's why does Ashley Giles play over Monty Panesar debate, for example. We all understand it, don't we? They would have loved a better spinner today. That was a really big day in Bracewell's career, and what he ended up with, 0 for 75 or something. He did beat the bat a lot, though, so maybe he was a bit unlucky. And hey, they won anyway. Neil Wagner, who I think day before, 2 days ago, I've been asked about, is this the end of Neil Wagner's Test career? I mean, he's bowled a fantastic spell. He's got Root and Stokes, and he's taken an absolutely match-defining catch. Brilliant game, eh? How quickly it changes.